What up, YouTube? I am your host, Mediocre, the tour reviews and reviews. Back in here with one more video. Guys, you already know what time it is. You're looking at the thumbnail as well as the title of the video. It's time to get active. Shout out to O'Shea Duke Jackson. I see you, my brother, over there working. O'Shea uploaded a video a few months back entitled How Dating Single Moms Can Legally Get You on Child Support. Yes, I read that correctly. O'Shea was interviewing another YouTuber by the name of Dennis Sperling, Unfiltered. I'll leave a link down to both of these brothers' channels down in the description box down below. Make sure you guys go over there and follow them. I have not seen this reaction yet, but I heard about it. So we got to be able to break down the knowledge to be able to distill it into those that may be unaware. Without further ado,
you put up a number of live streams, and your channel was growing quite rapidly. Mm-hmm. And the topic that struck me was on your Dennis Sperling Filtered channel. Right. He said it's called "Don't Date Single Mothers, or you may be ordered to pay child support." I said, "Wow, this is interesting." Yeah. Because here in the manosphere spaces, there are many reasons why guys tell people not to date women with children. And it revolves around being a cleanup man type of archetype, or not being her first choice. But yours was your argument is based clearly on legality, right? Or purely on legality. What do you mean by when you say that?
Well, let me say this, O'Shea. I'm not here to tell people what to do. Like I said, I give young men advice. They can use advice if they want to. This is not just for young men, it's older men. Again, I don't practice family law, but there have been some developments in the family law area of law. Think about it. And it's only recent, relatively speaking. In 2015, the Supreme Court addressed the same-sex marriage arguments in the Oberville-Hodges case. And basically what that case was about two women who were married, and one of them wanted rights to, actually it was about two women who were trying to get a divorce or trying to get married, and it was forcing the different states to recognize those marriages. Of course, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of same-sex marriage, and that's how we got that ruling. Now, as a result of that, there's been some changes in case law. There's a case out of Michigan, and it's called Stankovich v. Milleron. And this case came down out of the appellate court of Michigan in November of 2015, shortly after the Supreme Court case. And basically what they said was that this is another case where two women wanted to have custody over a child, one the biological mother, one the non-biological parent. But because she had spent so much time with the child, they're saying, well, she took on a parental role, and because of that, she's entitled to custody. Now, what had already been on the books was the fact that they can make a person, at that time, they used the tank language, a biological father, pay child support, even if it was against his will. And so now I'm sitting here contemplating, like, wow, that's a horrible situation to be in. And here's something else, and I'd like to share this with you, O'Shea. I'm going to bring this up on the screen here if I can. This is a post that I saw on the internet a while, maybe last week. If you don't think women are thinking about this, let's read this post. Can you make a male babysitter pay child support? I'm a single mom going to college with my sister. We currently rent an apartment together. A couple of weeks ago, I asked my neighbor, a trustworthy guy, if he could watch the kids for 2 hours. Well, I went to class and my sister wasn't home, and he agreed. If he babysits and doesn't accept pay, can I sue him for child support because he took on a fatherly role? I'm sure I can convince the court that he accepted the fatherly role. So basically what I'm saying is, if you're not careful, you could get caught up in a situation where you could have a judge, a woman sue you. Yes. And so the answer, her first question, can you sue him? Yes, you can sue him. Now, can you get a lawyer to sue him? That's going to be based on whether or not a lawyer feels like there's a good faith claim. But if you got that Oberfield Hodges case, and you couple that with the fact that you got this case out of Michigan, and I posted this up too, O'Shea, if you can allow it, because I want the people to see the language. This is what the court said in that November 2015 case. This court stated that given its recognition that a person who is not the biological father of a child may be considered a parent against his will.
Wow.
Which means even if you fuss and fight, that ain't not my child. That's not my child. I don't want to be the parent. It's not that he even volunteered to say, I'm the daddy, call me daddy, No, not like the case in Stankovich case. They're referring to another case that happened back in 1996. Against this will, they made this guy be the dad. Consequently, they burden him with the responsibility of paying child support. Such a person being treated as a parent may also seek rights of custody or parenting. So basically they're saying, before, we can make somebody be the father against their will. That wasn't a problem. And we would burden them with child support. But it was kind of up in the air whether or not we would give this non-biological parent permission to spend time with this child. But now, since the equitable parent doctrine has been strengthened by the Oberfield Hodges case out of the Supreme Court of the United States, we'll go ahead and let them have parenting time too. So what does this mean for the average brother who's hanging out with a single mom? What it means is...
Let me pause this real quick. The reason why this is so impactful that he's talking about this is because, a lot of us kind of just live our lives without understanding law because we're not lawyers. It's not the particular sector that the majority of us have chosen to go down and to study about, So the thing is that there's things that are changing each and every day that we just don't know about from a city law basis, from a state law basis, and from a national law basis. I had no idea that this Supreme Court case was even a thing, but the logic that he's trying to set up is that this is essentially a series of unfortunate events, right? He started off with the same-sex case, and he's ending off with the Supreme Court case. He also peppered in there that example of someone Googling can, they get child support from a babysitter, from a male babysitter, which is completely insane. But what Dennis is setting up is the idea that, yes, you can be sued and that they can reference these recent changes, the most recent of which was ordained by the Supreme Court, which is the highest court in the land of America. Let's keep it rocking. This is scary.
If she can get someone to write a letter or someone to come testify that, he took my child to school. He picked my child up from school.
Jesus.
He paid for my child's clothing. He took my child to the doctor. He babysat. He took my child to a babysitter. To a baseball game, football game. But he overall spent his time with my child. And heaven forbid, they call you daddy or stepdad, right? So now what have you done? You've basically given them enough facts to at least allege that you've taken on the fatherly role. So when you break up with your ex-girlfriend and you say, I'm done with you, you cheated on me, you broke the windows out of my car, I'm through with you, she can then go find a family law lawyer, present to him that fact pattern, and then what? And then you get sued because the lawyer says, well, I have a good faith belief this child, under the equitable parent doctrine, there's a good faith belief, there's a good claim here. Like maybe I'll lose, maybe I'll win. But guess what? Even defending that is going to cost you money.
Yeah.
You're going to have to retain a lawyer
to
fight against that. That may be $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, $10,000. And when it goes up on an appeal, it can be astronomical. So you got to fight with a woman who and they know and everybody knows you haven't had a child with. You may not even have had a sexual relationship with the woman. That's how expansive this can go. So what I'm trying to warn you guys is this is the potential that's out there.
Just let me pause it right here. This is absolutely terrifying. This is frightening. I'm even thinking about women in my life that have asked me to take a mentorship role or a big brother, a big uncle, or a fatherly type of role of their sons, right? And, I go take them out somewhere. We, we come back, we have conversations. In situations like that original babysitter thing, they could essentially use the same logic against. I'm not saying that the people that in my life would do anything like that, or if that's even their intention. But, when we talk about how are you exposing yourselves to risk is something that's always going through my mind each and every day with every decision that I am making, right? And what I'm hearing here is that men that choose to expose themselves to women who are single parents, single mothers, right? You may be taking on an added additional risk if you assume a fatherly role, right? In good faith. And then that relationship ends. She could, in this highly litigious society, bring it to a court with a family lawyer.
I'm not saying it'll happen today. I'm not saying it'll happen tomorrow, but it's going to happen at some point. Somebody is going to be the test case, because here's what the government is looking at. The government is saying marriages rates are going down. We need somebody to take these out of wedlock birth rate is going up. We need somebody to help take care of these kids.
Yeah, not tax dollars.
We're on the hook for taking care of these kids. We got to pay for medical. We got to pay for welfare. We got to do that. So why not get the closest man available to help pay for those kids? So if a woman can get you on the hook, man, she will. And I just thought it was interesting, man. And that's why I brought it up. And if you don't think women are thinking about that, refer back to that post that I put up from 10 years ago.
What I find fascinating about this is that how minor changes in the law are happening due to changes from our society. Like you said, marriage rate is going down. Well, U.S. government doesn't want to fit the bill for all of these new children that are being brought. So there's a minor shift and a change that then occurs that could in the future impact men. It's these small changes, these small intentional changes over time, if gone unchecked or not talked about, can result into these larger changes or these larger experiences that we see men going through that puts them at a disadvantage. Shout out to the alimony child support system as it exists today. Anyway, let's just keep going.
Yeah, you make a good point, because you talked about the Stankovich case that was in Michigan, and then the
Overfield case out of the Supreme Court of the United States, right?
Right, and then the post you talked about the babysitter. Now, somebody might come in and say, well, Counselor Sperling, this is a case that happened in Michigan,
right?
I mean, come on, man! I'm in South Carolina, I'm in Tennessee. Right. And this is just an anomaly. That happened in Michigan, but what does that got to do with Tennessee? What does that got to do with Virginia? What would you say to somebody who asks that?
I would say that a lawyer like myself who practices law in Texas, Louisiana, Illinois, and New York, licensed to practice in state court, would be aware of those cases. And the only question is whether or not he had a good faith basis to make those allegations. And since the equitable parent doctrine has been strengthened, and this Stankley case based it on the Oberville-Hodges case, which is a United States Supreme Court case, there's a good faith basis for them to make those allegations. In other words, what they can do is they could say, look, Your Honor, the Supreme Court has strengthened the Supreme Court of the United States, which governs all of our cases here in the United States, in state court, federal court. That's the supreme authority. They have strengthened the equitable parent doctrine. And so, matter of fact, I'll have you take a look at this Stankley case, which is out of Michigan, and it's not binding authority in the state of Kentucky. But look at the rationale that they followed. And the rationale is sound. And we need to impose that here. It's in the best interest of the child to make sure that the person who took on that fatherly role for the past 2.5, 3, 4, 5 years maintains that role, because it's in the best interest. They took the role, so now they can't up and abandon it. They can maybe break up in the relationship with the mother, but not the child, Judge. And you'll get a judge. I'm telling you guys, there's a judge out there.
Oh yeah.
That will say, well, this case, we're not going to dismiss it on summary judgment. We're going to let it go to trial. Everybody deserves their day in court. And you got to pay for that. And heaven forbid you say, I'm out of money. And your lawyer says, well, maybe you can settle. And then you end up paying child support for a child that's not yours. Or you go to a jury trial, you get a judgment, and it's either favorable or unfavorable, and it gets appealed. So now you're caught up in a situation where you're paying money. Imagine spending 7 years in your 20s or 30s while you're trying to build yourself up.
Mm-hmm.
And your money is going to pay for some case for child support for a kid that's not yours. Imagine how much of a drain that will be on you.
Mm-hmm.
You see? And that's why I'm just telling you, young men, older men, every man, just be aware. And here's the thing, they do it often in Canada. So it's not like it's foreign. Canada is where it's happening. Now, it'd be one thing if somebody said, well, that's up in Canada, that's not here. Then it's, what the heck are you talking about? Well, now it's landed in our backyard, you know.
Wow.
It's a quick ride from Michigan to Ohio, and you can make your way to the rest of the states from there. And trust me, if they're doing it in Michigan, California, New York, and some of these other Democratic, more liberal, female-friendly states are going to take that mantle and go with it.
Yeah.
You know, Al Gree's popular filmmaker made a movie called Frustrated 2. The child support system, which talks about everything that you're talking about right now. You had guys on there that were not the father and were paying child support.
Yeah.
And they, you know, go ahead.
Well, there are different scenarios in which you can. 30% of men, and look, let me tell you guys, don't call me about your child support issues, fella. I deal with car accidents, 18-wheelers, slip and falls. Don't you call me. You better not call my office asking me for help. I'm doing this as almost like a public service announcement. This is basic family law. Any family law lawyer can kind of talk to you about the equitable parent doctrine. Now, can they tell you what's going to happen? Can they tell you will never get sued for a child support to pay child's not yours? They can't do it. But back to what I was saying before.
Let me pause it right there, because I think he was actually about to talk about a common misinterpreted stat when he said the 30, and I think he was going to say 30%. What I think he was about to say was 30% of men are not the father of the child, right? That's purported to be theirs. That's not true. I don't know if he was about to say that, but I'm saying that just because I see this in my comment section and I just don't have the time to respond to everybody who says that. That's not true. There was a research study done, and of the fathers that checked, 30% of those fathers were not the father. Well, what's the difference? Well, if you're checking, you more than likely have an idea that it's already not yours or that some shit was amiss. Okay? So it skews that 30% number, right? Much higher than what it most likely is. Now, that 30% number is a shitty number. Let's not get it twisted. And whatever the actual number is, which we'll never know. I mean, I'm sure that they can do a statistical analysis for fathers that don't already think that they're not the father. They'd have to do it on that subset of people, right, in that data set to then maybe I don't know if any stats exist like that. My honest to God hope is that it's not 30% for all men, okay? But I wanted to clear that up right now because I think it's a common misconception when I see dudes recount the all men should have DNA tests. It's not 30% of all men. It's 30% of the men who took the test, okay? So let's just keep going.
30% of men in the UK are paying for children that aren't theirs. And I would have
to say it again.
30% of men, and there was a study that came out that said 30% of men are paying for children that aren't theirs.
So I don't know if he has another study from the UK, but from the United States, the study I looked at, it was 30% of the men who tested. Again, there's a big distinction there.
Biological. And some know and some don't know. In this situation here in the United States, there are different scenarios where you can end up paying for a child that's not biologically yours already. There was a case out of Texas where a man, I believe he was in jail at the time. Well, actually, here's how it went. He was paying for a child. The money was coming out of his check every month. So the woman had said, this child is yours. They began to garnish his check. It was like $20, $30. He barely noticed it. And so the time period to fight against that had elapsed. I believe it was 2 years at the time. But nevertheless, he let 15, 20 years go by and he stopped paying it because he got a new job or whatever, and they couldn't find him. And so by the time she caught back up with him again, he was $60,000 in arrears. This child wasn't his child, period. DNA evidence had proved it. So that's once, but he still was forced to pay under the current state of the law. So this is not something that's that uncommon. People have.
Listen, you guys don't think every time I say a video that I say that every man should have a DNA test, or every family, whatever. When I say man specifically, because the women always know that it's theirs because it comes out their insides, right? But everyone should be given a DNA test. Absolutely. No. But will it ever happen? Will it ever switch? No. Why? Because if it's not their right, if it's not their kid, then who has to pay? The government. So it's a strategic decision that's not in place. It's a strategic decision that they make you sign the birth certificate right there in the hospital, which is so interesting because, there's women who've been able to throw out prenups because, oh my God, he came to me at the wedding day and wanted me to sign it, and I was under so much duress. But then you're making men who are unsure if they're the father sign birth certificates while all the family's around and shit like that in the hospital. But for women, they get those things thrown out. But for men, this is what can happen when proven not theirs and still in arrears. Because he signed on that dotted line of the birth certificate.
Have to pay. People are sometimes forced to pay for children that aren't theirs, even if they know it's not theirs. So that's no safety. That's no umbrella to hide under, O'Shea.
Well, let me ask you this, because obviously, for a lot of the, black men, and I hate to go here, but in our community, obviously single parenthood is something that's on the rise. Mm-hmm. With a lot of African American men, with a lot of sisters that are historically, black men have been known to be a little bit more tolerant of dating single moms, because a lot of our families were kind of unified, like the Brady Bunch. He had kids, she had kids, that kind of got together and we kind of been like that. But what if it's a brother that, you like African American women, you want to stay in the black community, like you're very involved in the black community as a professional, and you want to date black women, but obviously there are some black women that have kids, right? And that's a problem for you. What knowing back on your life, just in picking a mate, what would you suggest to black men who, because they'll say, well, not all single moms are like this, but they want to date and possibly stay in the black community. What would you suggest how they should go about it and trying to attract some woman that is, that don't have kids and things like that?
Well, man, O'Shea, I don't give dating advice. And that's one thing I don't do. I don't give relationship advice. But what I will say is watch your wallet, because whatever future you have, whatever you're trying to build yourself up to be, will be seriously jeopardized by a monthly child support payment.
Facts.
What happens if you go back on you get it in arrears on your child support, right? You lose your license, driver's license.
Facts.
I know you're on your way to medical school, you lose your medical license.
You might lose your freedom.
Your law license, your trucking license, so you can't work. This is what, and you're paying, and this is because of child support that you're paying for a child that's not yours. But generally speaking, in the black community, I believe it's somewhere between 70 to 80% of children are born out of wedlock.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And so in a situation like that, you kind of, you date at your own peril. You date a woman, you have a bad relationship, you break up, but you created a relationship with that child. She has that option, and it's not well known at this point, but she will have that option. And the question is, do you want your future and your fortune and your destiny in the hands of someone else, especially an ex-girlfriend? Something bad enough to have a wife, an ex-wife. Now you got imagine if all your ex-girlfriends who had
my goodness. I know where you're going. Go ahead and say that.
Got together and put you on child support for all these kids that aren't yours.
Planned attack.
I didn't even think about that.
The children that you hadn't even, hell, it's not even about ex-girlfriends. what if the neighbor's kid, who you spent a lot of time with, developed a fatherly relationship with you? And so
That's what I
now
was
you
saying
got
earlier.
the neighbor's kid who said, I miss him, and his mom says, there's nothing I can do about it. Can you come visit? Well, no, I can't. I moved out of town. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and put you on child support because you maintained a fatherly relationship with my son for the 5 or 6 years you were our neighbor. You taught him how to cut grass. You see what I'm saying, man?
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys. So listen, I'm going to pause it right there. There's a lot more in the video. I'm going to leave a link to the video down in the description box down below. Shout out again to these two brothers, O'Shea Duke Jackson, my brother, Dennis Sperlin, my brother now as well, because you've given us the knowledge and the information. All right. What he said at the end there was so important. He said, watch your wallet. That's very important. I know that he was framing it in the context of the child not being yours. But even if the child is actually yours and you create a life earlier in life, like, let me give you an example from my life. If I had a child 10 years ago or whatever that it was, you know what I'm saying? I today would not be financially independent. I'd be nowhere close. Okay. So if you make that decision to date, go in the guts raw, you are then risking your potential future. Okay. You miss out on all of the revenue generating, the time intensive activities to continue to build your kingdom up, the different geographies that you can go to learn more about the world and increase your experiences in a very nuanced way. You lose out on all of that because of the decision to go into the Viscuits Innards Raw Daddy and shoot up some clubs because it just feels good. Okay. And I have to be able to talk about that because not too many talk about being able to conquest in a very responsible way. Now that we have different laws that are changing, you understand from a single mother's perspective. And here's the thing at the end of the day. You're going to put yourself, what Uncle Dennis Sperlin, Uncle D is saying, all right? It says it right there, Uncle D. What Uncle D is saying is that you can inevitably be putting yourself at risk, all right? But it sounds like to me, you're putting yourself at even more risk as if you are interacting and have a fatherly role to that child. I think that if you still want to mess with single mothers, make a clear line and delineation that you refuse to have contact with the child and then keep those receipts. Again, I'm going to leave the contact information of these brothers down in the description box down below. Go over and complete the video and then go subscribe to their channels. This is super dope right here. This is the information that needs to be put up on a pedestal so we all can become more informed to make sure that we are making the most correct decisions to ensure that we're leading a life of joy and happiness into the future. All right. The less that you know about the world that you live in, the more chance that you might make a decision that can put your future in jeopardy. It is no one else's responsibility but yours to learn. All right. Questions, comments, concerns. Y'all already know what to do. Mediocre tutorials and reviews at gmail.com. Feel free to hit me up. Got a Patreon as well. We are booming up there. You understand me? Guys, if you want another level, another tier to understand all of the information that we go over on this channel, also with a focus on finances, financial literacy, and education, click on that link down below. Come into my private Discord server. We have established weekly meetings, sometimes bi-weekly as well. Feel free to come up, connect. I'm in these meetings as well, and you get an opportunity to be able to connect with your boy. All right, let's continue to build and take this to the promised land. All right, until next time, YouTube.